Hello and welcome back to another episode of CovertGoLore. It's me, it's CGB, here with my lovely wife Gina, who will be reading the story, and Maddie B, who will be doing the amazing editing. This is episode 3 of the main story of STRIXHAVEN, called Extracurriculars. Take it away, Gina!
Okay, you ready for after school? That's when the extracurriculars take place.
Yeah!
Sure.
Okay.
It's written by Dana Washington again. And this time, we're going to follow the twins around with all their twin stuff. So it's a lovely autumn day. Leaves are blowing around outside. But in the twins' dorm room, Will is, what else? Studying!
Bum-bum.
Specifically, he's struggling with a homework assignment from Professor Onyx called Ethics of Etheric Manipulation. What do you think that's about?
Probably whether or not you should manipulate Aether.
Well, to me, it sounds like her project on the side. Like, hey, students, can you figure this out for me? Like, just write a paper on it. Like, I just need something, anything. So he's working on this, and Rowan comes in the door. She's in a good mood. Will looks up. Oh, been hanging out with your Witherbloom friends? Rowan's like, yeah, so what? Will said, well, did you finish your Ethics of Etheric Manipulation assignment? And Rowan says, yep. And Will's like, and you're ready for Professor Onyx's exam? It's supposed to be really hard. Though what? It's in 2 days. You're not taking any of this seriously. And then Rowan's like, get off my case! And then there is massive crackling Pikachu energy. Electricity is sparking around her face. Will is shocked. Rowan shakes it off, storms out the door. End of first scene.
Teenage planeswalkers terrify me.
They're really scary. It's 2 days later. Will has still not finished this assignment. It's so hard, but he's moved to the library. And now he's with a study buddy named Quint, who is a Loxodon, aka Elephant Person. And the Elephant Person is super into history.
Lore hold.
Yeah. So Will is whining. He's like, oh, I just want someone to turn me into a newt and save us all a lot of trouble.
A newt?
A newt. Quint tries suggesting a book that might help, but Will's like, I already got that book. Well, like any good friend, Quint gives him the old like, hey buddy, it's gonna be okay. You'll figure it out. And then he's looking over his own books, and then he lets out the loudest whoop you can give in a library. Whoop, whoop. And he celebrates a discovery. I knew it! Arceus the Magnificent and Bear Rod Horizon Seeker were the same person! He pauses for effect, waiting for Will to freak out like he is, because they're both super duper mega nerds. Will just kind of nods. He's not really listening. But Quint keeps going on about his discovery, jumping out of his chair and spilling his tea on an ancient book. Oh no, not a book! Now Quint has Will's attention, and Will panics. Oh no! Isabeau is gonna kill us! We'll be in detention bog for a month! Isabeau is a tree folk librarian.
F's in the chat for the book.
But Quint, with a glint in his eye, says, not if she doesn't find out. And his finger begins to glow, and he touches it to the tea and then to the book, calling like to like, and droplets of tea lift from the book back into the cup. He smiles and says, there's always a spell. That'll probably come back later.
Probably.
Meanwhile, Rowan is at Bow's End, the cool pub, hanging out with her Witherbloom witch friends. Their names are Auvernine and Plink. And she's enjoying sipping on a fruity fizzy potion. And they're gossiping about the latest duels taking place. And Rowan just can't stop thinking about that duel she was a part of on her first day here. She's been dying to let loose like that again since it's basically the highlight of coming here. Will's super happy with his books. She just wants to let off some steam. And then her brother appears. He sees her across the room and strides over with purpose and a stern look in his eyes. He informs her, Professor Onyx posted the exam scores. You barely passed. I thought you were ready for the test. Rowan's like, I passed, didn't I? Will keeps going. You had plenty of time to prepare if you weren't running around with your friends. Now she's fuming. She's like, outside now. So they both make their way toward the door, and as soon as they're out of earshot of the Witherblooms, she grabs his arm and demands, where do you get off embarrassing me like that in front of my friends? And Will's like, and do your friends know about your magic sparking up every time you get angry? We're here to learn to get better control of our powers. You don't want to be like our birth mother.
Dum bum bum. The witch?
What did you say? Will can feel the charge in the air as the hair on his arm stands on end. He tries to back down, but she presses forward. Say it again. Tell me how I'm like our mother. Fortunately, at that moment, the Witherbloom witches burst out of the pub, excited to tell Rowan, we're going shopping at Witherbloom's for Wittershins for supplies. Rowan puts on a big smile for them and says, shopping? I'm so there. And then her smile disappears when she turns back to Will. Leave me alone, Will. You can't tell me what to do. Before he can respond, she leaves to catch up with her friends. This is so drama, right?
The teenage girls will find this story so relatable.
So much drama.
I feel like there's a lot more, though, parents reading this who play Magic now who are like, this reminds me of my daughter.
Maybe. All right. The twin drama continues. Even though they share a room, Will hardly saw Rowan after that. By the day of the Mage Tower match, they hadn't spoken in weeks. So we're at a Mage Tower match now. On the field, in front of Will and Quint, Prismari and Silverquill are duking it out. They're spell slinging at each other. And Quint's just like marveling at the creativity of the students down below. But Will can't stop thinking about his sister and how he'd heard she's gotten into a few duels around campus since he last saw her at the pub. On the field, a Silverquill player leaps into the air, propelled by an arc of black flame. He catches the mascot for his team. It's a blob-like, shape-shifting inkling thing. And then a Prismari player just charges directly at the player holding the mascot and throws out like a hand wreathed in a circle of crimson light. The mascot begins to glow with a halo of red light over its head. And then the inkling leans over. I guess it's a snake kind of now because it sinks two fangs into the Silverquill player's hand. And he yells, ah! And he drops the mascot just in time for the Prismari player to scoop it up. Quint jumps to his feet and yells, mascot interception! Brilliant! Whole crowd's cheering. Rah! Quint bro hugs Will the way only sports fans can. Will's like really confused about what just happened. He's not super into sports. So he hypnotized it? And Quint clarifies, oh no, he took control of it altogether. It's a simple trick and it only works on summoned creatures. But like, wow! Sports! Yay, sports! Then Will spots Rowan. She's across the aisle. She sees him at the same time. Their eyes meet. Immediately, she wants to leave. Oh. She's with her friends. And her friend Auvergne says to her, you should at least say hi. And then Plink pats Rowan's arm and says, he's your brother. That's not something to take for granted. Rowan scowls. It's just fine. So, brother and sister move towards each other and stop in the aisle. Will asks, hey, you hang out with the Witherblooms a lot. Sure you chose the right college? Rowan says, what is that supposed to mean? Will says, well, you clearly have no interest in really learning. Nature mages won't care if you can control your powers. Rowan scowls harder. I can control them. See me not blasting you with lightning? Will is mad at her for shutting him out for weeks and leaving him on his own. You've sure been blasting all over campus in duels and not studying. If all you wanted to do was fight, I wish you'd stayed on Kylem. Okay, he didn't mean it, but he kind of knows he went too far just now. because her hair is like beginning to stand on end. And once again, she's crackling with big Pikachu energy. And she says, "Oh, I'll show you what I've been learning." And a spark just like jumps from her hand and it goes through his body in an instant. And his muscles are jerking and seizing and he collapses. "You wish I'd stayed on Kylam? I wish you'd stayed dead!" I'm just having a lot of Bella Twins flashbacks right now. Will?
They called what they did twin magic, the Bella Twins. Yeah. Oh god, that's so perfect too.
So after this big... Okay, Will can't move. So he reaches out with his other senses, and then Rowan gasps because her boots are frosting over. She's frozen in place. And he keeps muttering under his breath. There's fog puffing around his face. And she like extends her hand. It's crackly with energy. She's got to throw something at him, but before she can, a layer of ice forms on her hand and her arm. And she cries out, "Oh, my arm is so cold. It hurts." And then finally a voice commands, "Stop." It's Professor Onyx. The crowd falls silent, clears a path for her. "All of you return to your seats. You two, come with me."
Whoopsh.
Trouble. So now they're in her office. She lights a few candles with purple flame and says, "That was no ordinary sibling rivalry. Strife between brother and sister is a special kind of pain, and it takes a special kind of fool to foment it." Will steps forward. "It's my fault. I started it." Rowan looks at him, but she doesn't say anything. She
did. Of course she did.
Yeah. Well, Professor Onyx looks at them both. She's just shaking her head. She sits down in her chair. Will is surprised. She seems to look tired, but you don't ever want to tell a woman she looks tired. Just don't do it. She tells them, "There are those that wish this place great harm, and if we are fighting amongst ourselves, their task will be far easier." Will asks, "Professor, what are you talking about?" And Professor says, "Have you heard of the Auric?" Rowan laughs. "Haha, yeah, those losers who couldn't pass the entrance exam." Onyx is like, "Yeah, that's one way of putting it, but underestimating them would be foolish. Strixhaven doesn't have a monopoly on power in this plane." Will's ears are like, "What? Plane? This plane?" Onyx smiles. And Rowan just missed this and asks, "But if the Auric were planning an attack, wouldn't the professors, do something about it?" And Onyx smiles and says, "Maybe, maybe not. The question is, what would you do about it?" As the twins leave the building, they argue about their place in this. Will wants to do something. Rowan thinks they should let the professors handle it. Will disagrees. He says, "There's only so many professors. There has to be a way to protect ourselves and the other students. There must be knowledge that can help us at the library." I don't want to be helpless again. Rowan shudders, remembering Oko and their father. From my understanding, Oko is like a shape-shifting Loki-type planeswalker who tried to kill their daddy, the High King, and both twins got fooled and charmed, and the memory of that still haunts them both.
The memory of Oko haunts Magic players across all formats, everywhere, always, as one of the most broken, insane cards ever printed that had to be banned from all formats.
So everyone listening to the story shudders.
They were triggered. They were triggered when you said Oko.
It's not my fault. Rowan looks at Will over her shoulder and says, "You prepare your way, I'll prepare mine." And she leaves. All right. We're going to jump over to Kasmina. Remember Kasmina? Kasmina has owls. Mm-hmm. She's watching the twin with her owls. And right now, her owl sees Rowan sending fork lightning across a grassy lawn as Auvergnine and Plink watch. So that's her training. Then Kasmina looks through another owl's eyes to see Luca, standing with a masked Auric agent, who's offering him a silver skull-shaped mask. "Hey, want this?" Luca shakes his head, and his skin darkens, and he takes on the markings of his fox. I didn't know he could do that.
What's going on over there?
It's a better look, I guess.
Okay.
He's like, I don't want your mask. Look what I can do. And after the agent leaves, Luca suddenly turns and looks straight at the owl. She sends the bird away and out of the cave immediately. She's seen enough. Let's go back to Rowan. Rowan is sitting in Auvernine's room. She's exhausted. She's been training for weeks, trying to figure out how to better channel her power, and she's not making a lot of progress. And she's watching Auvernine, who is lifting this like squirming worm-like creature from a glass jar. She tells Rowan, oh, this is a common salt gobbler, and tells the story about, oh, it took me like an hour to find one this big. She chants over it, and it goes still. And her voice fills the room, and the worm begins to rise. It's twisting and shivering as glimmering energy rises from its body, and then its life force floats into Auvernine's potion, and it goes from like a deep purple to a vibrant red. And as she finishes, the salt gobbler just like flops down, and it's like struggling to breathe. Rowan's like, that is really creepy. Auvernine agrees, yeah, a little. The potion requires more power than I can get with pure herbology, but if I can get it right, it could help a lot of people. Some sacrifices are necessary for the greater good, right? And then, of course, the voices say, the greater good.
The greater good.
So Rowan just kind of shrugs and thinks about her mother's idea of sacrifices. All right. Later on, Rowan finds Will at the biblioplex. He's buried under a ton of books and scrolls, and he's mumbling to himself like a weirdo. And she says, you call this training? And Will says, what we know might not be enough. I'm trying to add more to our arsenal with all these books. And Rowan says, or we could find a way to put more power behind what we already have. So across the room, she sees this like floating jellyfish-like elemental creature. It's next to a studying Prismari student. She swallows some of the disgust she had at what she saw Auvernine do and thinks, well, it's just a spell, like any other, just a spell. Will looks up from his book. It's like, what are you doing, Rowan? And she's like, shh, we're in a library. She focuses on the elemental. Electricity is crackling and leaping between her fingers. She pulls the veins of power from the watery surface of the jellyfish-like thing, and it collapses into a puddle on the floor. And now she's got all this energy in her palm. It's like rolling around, but then it explodes in a burst of lightning. That makes her hand stand on end. And the Prismari student's like, gathers up their stuff and just books it out of there. And Will hisses, Rowan, you can't just siphon magic out of whatever you like. We haven't taken any classes on it. You might hurt someone or yourself. Rowan says, the Auric aren't following the rules. They're going to do whatever it takes, and so should we. And Will says, with great power comes great responsibility. That's why we're here. Otherwise,
I've heard that line before.
Yeah. Otherwise, we might use our powers for selfish or dark purposes. Didn't you learn anything from our
Uncle
mother?
Ben?
No, our mother.
Our mother.
Our mother. We learned something from our mother. Or Oko? Yeah, Rowan shoots back. I learned that when you're not afraid to break the rules, you get a whole lot done. Good luck with your books. And she leaves. Back to Kasmina. She is watching and waiting as Luca strides into her courtyard. She says, it's a shame to see a man like you fallen so far. What would your unit think of their former leader becoming a pawn in someone else's scheme? Luca just shrugs and says, well, not much, since like half are dead and the other half want me dead. How long have your fake birds been watching me? Kasmina's voice is cold. Long enough to know that this path will only lead to more pain for you and many others, and I'm not gonna let you do that, Luca. And he growls, I'm done with being told how to live, and I'm nobody's pawn. The mages who run the school think they're better than anyone else. I'm gonna show them they're wrong. Kazmina sighs. I'd hoped you might become an ally and use your gifts for good, but I overestimated you. Before he can respond, her owl shoots off her shoulder into the air, flapping its wings, and the air around Mila just kind of condenses into this raging sphere. Kazmina sends a super pressurized air scythe straight for Luca. He ducks. She sends a super pressurized air lance at him. He rolls, takes out his sword. He charges her. She blocks with her staff. Her eyes are glowing silver. Luca growls, those dragons guard. They've had power over these people too long, making them afraid of every shadow and new face. What happens when it's not just Auric they're hunting, but anyone who practices magic in a way they don't like? When he swings again, she puts up a blue force field around herself. She says, you can't see beyond your own pain, Luca. Extus isn't going to change that or share power with you. He's only out for himself. Luca's just like slamming against the wall of light. He's got big rage face. He says, I don't care what he does after all this is burned to the ground. So he wants to burn everything down. He's in a really bad mood. And he just keeps swinging. When she shoots beams of light at his tummy till it hurts. And then he's down. He's next to his trapped fox. And she points her staff under his chin. Tells him to yield. And he laughs. Ha ha ha! It's only just beginning. She hadn't been keeping track of her owls during the battle, and what she sees now sends cold chills down her spine. And Luca grins. Ha! I didn't come here to beat you. I'm not dumb enough to think I can do that yet. But they sure can. The ground shakes. The horizon crawls with a swarm of chittering legs, scurrying between trees, and they're glowing a sickly purple color. Kazmina whispers, Mage hunters, what have you done? Luca spits blood. Done? We're just getting started. As the creatures close in, Kazmina closes her eyes, and she planeswalks out of there. Luca gets up and dusts himself off. He hears footsteps, and Extus approaches. Extus asks, are you sure you're in control? Like, no Auric has ever tried to control this many at once before. Luca smiles and says, I'm not like your other mages. The rest of the Auric approach and come to a stop in a line at the edge of the courtyard. Extus nods and says, commence the attack. And that's where the story ends.
Rowan and Will aren't getting along.
No.
But maybe they'll start trying to get along
Maybe.
in order to defend the land.
They must.
Rowan's hanging out with Golgari students and learning weird, magic-y, gross stuff.
Yeah, she's like, oh, take power. Cool, I can do that.
Professor Onyx is recruiting the kids into the Onyx army, I guess.
Yeah.
And Luca is down with the Auric and has run Kazmina off the plane.
Mm-hmm. We like all the pieces are getting into place. We're about to fight.
Well, I'm ready for the fight. Are you?
Yeah.
We'll see what happens on the next episode of CovertGoLore. So thank you for watching this episode. On behalf of my lovely wife Gina, editor Maddie B, we will see you in the next episode. You're cool.
Study hard so you can fight good.